Presswood. I'm the president of the Ward 8 Democrats, and I'm joined once again by my friend and colleague Marcus Batchelor, who is the chair of the Membership and Voter Outreach Committee for the Ward 8 Democrats. All right, now let's talk about the big race, the mayor. Okay, now this is a hotly contested four-person race. Mayor Bowser is facing at-large Councilmember Robert White. She's also facing Ward 8 Councilmember Trayon White and former Ward 5 ANC Commissioner James Butler. Now, conventional wisdom in a four-person race tells me that the outcome usually favors the incumbent, but there's a lot of energy in this race as well. So maybe the conventional outcome won't be so conventional.
No, that's true. We'll see. I mean, I think this race is definitely going to be a litmus test on how voters think the city is doing. Do we think we're headed in the right direction, or do we think we need a drastic change? I think Mayor Bowser's message has been that we need to stay the course, that we need to stay with experienced leadership, and she's tried to demonstrate in various ways, both in this debate specifically to Ward 8 voters, but to voters at large, how she's kept her promises over the last 8 years. Councilmember Robert White, I think, has talked about more aggressively going after those issues. He's worked overtime to point out kind of where the government has fallen short on issues super critical to voters in Ward 8 and in the city this election: public safety, affordable housing, schools. And then I think you see the same from our Councilmember White, who is really looking at a wholesale shift in what power looks like in our city. He is really galvanizing an energetic group of residents who are fed up with the direction the city is going and believe that there needs to be a change in the balance of power. And so those discussions, I think, are taking super interesting shapes. James Butler is saying that all three have had their opportunity and it's time to clean house. And so he is making a very strong case to voters that they should try new leadership, completely new leadership in the Wilson building. And so we'll see how far that message carries them this June.
Yeah, James Butler has certainly been an interesting aspect of the mayoral race, to say the least. And we should also note that Mayor Bowser and Councilmember Trayon White both tied for first place in the Ward 8 Dem straw poll. Now, I've never seen nothing like that before. Literally, we counted, recounted, triple counted, and the votes came out to be evenly split between the two of them. So what does that tell you? I'm not sure, but you got to get out there and vote for sure. Well, all right. Thank you, Marcus, so much for your insights. And we want you to now see for yourself how these candidates answer questions from Ward 8 voters and from Ward 8 residents. Feel free to post your comments or live tweet the event using the hashtag Ward 8 Votes. We'll be there live tweeting with you as well. And so on behalf of all of us here at the Ward 8 Democrats, we want to thank you for joining us. And now our encore presentation.
I want to welcome you officially to the Ward 8 Democrats public meeting for May 2022. I'm Troy Dante Presswood, I'm the president of the Ward 8 Democrats, and I'm officially calling our meeting to order. I want to thank all of you for being here with us today in person. And I want to thank also our friends who are joining us via the live stream. We are here at Matthews Memorial Baptist Church, and we're really glad that you're here, and we're really, we want you to share on social, either on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, that you are here at Matthews Memorial Baptist Church and that you are here at the Ward 8 Democrats Forum. You can use the hashtag Ward 8 Dems or the hashtag Ward 8 Votes so others don't miss it. Before we go on, we want to take up this opportunity to offer a moment of silence. We know that we have lost loved ones. Some of us are here today with heavy hearts, and so we know that some have lost loved ones from disease and cancer, perhaps COVID, or either community violence. We also remember those who are lost here as well as in battlefields across the country and across the world. So if you'll join me for a brief moment of silence for those that we've lost. Thank you. Before we go further, I want to introduce, as you know, we're here, as I said, at Matthews Memorial Baptist Church. And the shepherd of this wonderful church is here with us today to bring greetings on behalf of the church. So will you help me welcome Reverend Dr. Joseph D. Turner.
Good morning. I am Pastor Joe Turner, and we are here at Matthews, where we are people sharing the good news of Jesus Christ to transform unbelievers to committed disciples. And if perhaps you have not come to know that, we're here to explain it and express it. This is a place of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we're happy to have those who will be sharing on the panel, and we pray that as you share, that all will be included. There'll be a level of equity, and there'll be a letter of truth that comes forth. Thank you so much for coming. You're absolutely welcome. And again, we say welcome.
Thank you so much, Pastor, and thank you to all of the volunteers who have been tremendously helpful here at Matthews Memorial Baptist Church. And so we'll name those individuals a little bit later in our program, but I just wanted to just thank you and thank them personally and publicly for their support. Hey, we are being co-sponsored by the DC Democratic Party, and joining us today is the actual chairman of the DC Democratic Party. He is also a Ward 8 resident. If you will help me welcome Charles Wilson, chair of the DC Democratic State Committee.
Thank you, Troy, and good morning, Ward 8 Democrats. Good morning. Yeah, good afternoon. I'm excited to be here. Of course, I am also a Ward 8 Democrat, living right down the street in Anacostia. But I want to say, first of all, everybody, we really should give a round of applause to the entire executive committee of the Ward 8 Democrats. Yes, because one, this is a 100% volunteer organization, and every member of this executive committee works really, really hard to be able to engage Ward 8 voters on the political process. So it's always good to say thank you. We appreciate the work that you do because sometimes this is a thankless job, and I know they work really hard. So I also want to bring greetings on behalf of the entire DC Democratic State Committee. After this, I really want to encourage you. One, yes, listen to the great conversations that you're going to have today about how we improve the quality of life in the District of Columbia and how we get statehood. But I encourage all of you to get involved with the Ward 8 Democrats. If not the Ward 8 Democrats, get involved with your community and civic association because at the end of the day, we can elect who we want to elect. But the only way our neighborhoods become better, our communities become better, our schools become better, our streets become safer is when you get involved in the process. So enjoy today's discussions and make sure you get involved. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chairman Wilson, and thank you again to the DC Democratic State Committee, the DC Democratic Party, really, for their support and sponsorship of today's forum. Okay, in keeping with our voter education mission, we are pleased to welcome you online and those of you who have joined us live here in person for our final forum for U.S. Representative, DC Attorney General, and Mayor. Now, we held our last forum last month for Delegate to Congress, at-large, council member, and council chair. If you didn't see that, check out our website, check out our social media platform. You can go back and watch that online. It was, I think we have over 1,000 views online, so you can go back and watch it. Check us out on Facebook and, of course, on our website at ward8dems.com. Today is your opportunity to hear directly from Democratic candidates vying for our support for these important offices. We will explore their records, their ideas, policy proposals, and vision for our ward, district, and the nation. We've asked all the campaigns that you will see represented today to partner with us to support our Get Out the Vote efforts here in Ward 8. And we want to publicly thank the campaigns of Oye Awolowo, Linda Gray, Brian Spiva, Robert White, and Trayon White You'll see their ads in the program book, or you will see their information on our marketing materials that you'll see on our website and on social this election season. So again, want to thank Wolewa, Linda Gray, Brian Spiva, Robert White, and Trayon White's campaigns for their support. All right, let's get this forum started. Now, initially, Delia Gonçalves is a reporter and anchor at WUSA 9. She joined that team in 2010. She got her first break in business right here in Washington at the U.S. Senate Radio TV Gallery and at NBC Network News. She then left D.C. to pursue her on-camera reporting endeavors, which then took her back to her native New England. Delia spent 5 years crisscrossing the region, working at several stations in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. During that time, she had the privilege of covering a number of national stories, including the station nightclub fire in Rhode Island that claimed 100 lives, and the historic vote on gay marriage in Boston, the first vote of its kind in the country. Thank you. Thank you. All right, for those watching online, we just had some folks talking. We had to get them straight. All right, so before returning to the nation's capital, Delia spent 4 years in Baltimore, where she was named Baltimore's best reporter in 2009. Among her most memorable stories in the Charm City was Delia's profile of a woman and her daughter living in a home without electricity or running water. But that reporting got her safer shelter in the end. Her reporting on the homeless here in DC has helped people get off the streets and reunite families. She has a passion about reporting facts, challenging the status quo, and telling compelling stories at the heart of our community. Delia is a first-generation Cape Verdean American born in New Bedford, Massachusetts, of immigrant parents who taught her the invaluable lessons of faith, hard work, and perseverance. And she lives east of the river with a husband and 3 daughters. So will you please welcome our moderator for the next 2 forums, Delia Gonçalves.
Troy's a bit taller than I am. I have to bring that down. Thank you, Troy, for that introduction. Couple of housekeeping notes, and we're just going to run through the order of the debate before we invite our candidates to the stage to begin a very lively and important discussion this afternoon. So I will ask a few questions initially, but as we said before, this forum really is all about you. It is for you, and while we are asking that everyone show a little respect to the folks who are here, we want your voices to be heard. So if you have questions, you are given a index card. Please write down your questions on that index card. We did a really great job last debate getting to nearly every question that came to the podium. Folks who are online, you could also put your question in the chat or use the hashtag Ward8Vote. Someone as well will be monitoring that and will hand your question to me, and we will do our very best to get to your question. So each candidate will be given 1 minute for an opening statement. We will start with 1-minute responses, and perhaps if we move closer to the end of our debate, we will shorten our responses to 30 seconds. There will also be time for rebuttal, and that will be 30 seconds as well. A candidate, again, if you are named directly in the response of an opposing candidate, you will have an opportunity to rebut for 30 seconds. Now we turn to the mayoral candidates. The mayor is the head of the executive branch of the DC government. The mayor has the duty to enforce district laws and the power to either approve or veto bills passed by the DC Council. The mayor is elected to a 4-year term every non-presidential election year, and there are 4 candidates on the ballot for the Democratic primary, and we have all 4 here this afternoon. So let's meet our candidates. Mayor Muriel Bowser. James Butler. Trayon Washington, D.C. White. And Robert White. We're playing a bit of musical chairs up here. I should have followed and taken a look at the cards before calling you up. Thank you, candidates, for being here. I know we're running a little behind schedule, so we're going to dive right in. We're going to start with your 1 minute opening statements. Again, we're going to follow up with 1 minute responses to the questions, 30-second rebuttals. And I will start with Mr. Butler, who is to my right. 1 minute opening remark.
Good afternoon, Ward 8. I think we are off. Now we're prepped. Good afternoon, Ward 8. Thank you all for coming today. Madam Moderator, we thank you. Ward 8 Dems, we thank all that you do to further the ends of spreading information and the ends of democracy. As was mentioned, I am James Butler, and I am running to be D's next mayor. I am a proud Washingtonian. I am equally as proud to be the only non-career politician running for the office of mayor. I'm a former ANC residing in Ward 5. I'm also a former civil rights lawyer. Folks, I have sued state governments, city governments, counties. I have learned how government works. I also, as an ANC, I learned where the fault lines and problems lie. Folks, I am running against 3 people who currently receive government money for a salary and also for their campaigns. I have appealed to voters that we need to change and clean house. If you do more of the same, you will get more of the same. That is why I am asking for your vote on June 21st. And you can learn more at butler4dc.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. Mr. Robert White, 1 minute.
Good afternoon, Ward 8. I'm Robert White. I'm a 5th generation Washingtonian, a husband, a father, and an at-large council member. Growing up, I was a young person who was counted out. When I was 8 years old, I lost my mom to breast cancer, and just a few weeks after that was in a near-fatal car accident that pushed me so far behind in school that I failed every grade from 3rd to 10th grade. But 10 years after my high school guidance counselor told me I wouldn't go to college, I was a lawyer sitting beside Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton on Capitol Hill fighting for district residents. To go from where I was to where I am now, I had to learn how to become a problem solver, and that is the skill set that I've used to deliver for DC residents. I passed the most sweeping early childhood education legislation in the country, made the District of Columbia the first jurisdiction in the nation to restore voting rights to all incarcerated people, and I've helped Ward 8 businesses buy their buildings so that they wouldn't be displaced. What we need now is a mayor who is a problem solver. Crime is through the roof. People can't afford to live in our city, and Black and brown students are behind in droves in our school. I am ready to lead our city on day one. That's why I'm asking for your vote to be the next mayor of our great city.
Ms. Bowser, 1 minute.
Well, hello, Democrats. It is great to see you all here, and it's always great to be in Ward 8. I am so grateful to you for your support, and I'm asking you for your support again. When we were here in 2014, we were talking about what we needed to do in our city to make sure that investments that were happening in every part of the city were also happening right here in Ward 8. I've been proud that our administration has been able to make real investments in Ward 8 schools, in Ward 8 recreation centers, in bringing fresh food and grocery to Ward 8, the first ever economic development investment that will bring workers, hotel, and jobs to Ward 8. What people told me 8 years ago was that they would not support somebody who was just here at election time asking for their vote, but would show up on the tough issues and would make the investments that would put people back to work and put people in quality housing. And that's what we have been able to do these last 8 years. Now, our challenge in the next 4 years is to come back from this pandemic.
Mayor, that's your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Trayon White.
So my name is Trayon White, and I'm a proud representative on the DC City Council representing Ward 8. Is Ward 8 in the house? And so my political career started with the Ward 8 Democrats. I want to thank you. What I know as a young man growing up in this city, that most people that look like me, talk like me, walk like me, don't make it out. And so instead of me complaining about the problems, my job was to create a solution. I learned from Mr. William Lockridge a long time ago that the people who need the resources the most are not at the table. And so as a council member, I argue back and forth with this administration about basic resources and city services for everyday residents. And like some of the commissioners know, we put in tickets to get services done, and they close the ticket out, but the job is still not done. And so my solution is don't just stand there, do something. And so we know that in the last 10 years, education has not gotten better, public safety has not gotten better, our healthcare has not gotten better, and so it's about us creating a cooperative solution to address these issues. So as a mayor, we're gonna win this thing, and we're gonna put people over politics.
That's
Thank
your
you.
time. Thank you. Okay, these questions are coming directly from our audience members. We received index cards that folks just wrote their questions on. We're encouraging folks online to do so as well. One housekeeping note from our audio tech: if you candidates can keep your microphone off until you are called upon to speak, I think that will help with some feedback that he's receiving. Thank you so much. So our first question, and I will start with Mr. Butler to my right, and we will go down the line. Would you approve an east of the river budget that allocates a budget specifically for Wards 7 and 8 that serves to address the more critical and nuanced needs of our neighbors here? Mr. Butler, 1 minute.
And thank you, Madam Moderator. I have answered this question before, and my answer, and I promised the voters early on in this election that I will not equivocate on what I will answer very directly and unequivocally. Yes, I would. Ward 8 has been left too far behind. We have a mayor that talks about she's going to pay the attention to Ward 8 as she does the other city, but we know when a shooting happens uptown, we see the podium come out. We know when it happens all the time here east of the river. Ask her how much she's paying attention to that. We need a mayor that's going to do the tough stuff in democracy and finally pay attention to east of the river. And I'm that man.
Thank you. Ms. Bowser, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to rebut since you were directly mentioned.
I don't want to directly rebut Mr. Butler, but I want to say this. I've talked to too many mothers, been on too many crime scenes, and I've been, unfortunately, on those crime scenes in all 8 wards. And the devastation that gun violence is playing in our city, we can make political hay out of it. But what I'd rather do is make sure that our police department has the resources it needs, that our prevention programs are in place and actually working, that we're prosecuting violent gun offenders and drug dealers so that we have safe neighborhoods across the District of Columbia. What we should all be talking about is ending needing to go to any crime scene to stand over a child or a person that has been murdered in our city. And that has to be our collective focus.
Mr. White, would you approve a specific budget for Wards 7 and 8?
What I hear from residents every single day in Ward 7 and 8 is that they feel forgotten, and that is because we are decades behind on investments in Ward 7 and 8. We don't need a specific budget in Ward 7 and 8. I'm going to be a mayor who makes it clear to our entire city that our entire budget is going to focus on catching up Ward 7 and 8, from transportation to attracting businesses to improving our schools. What we need in this city is a mayor who will stand up to the rest of the city and say, look, I'm going to settle expectations. In this time right now, when we have the money, the resources to do for Ward 7 and 8 what we have not done over the past 40 years, that is going to be our priority. When people across our city hear that from their mayor, they're going to want to be part of that solution. So we're going to improve schools in Ward 8. We're going to improve transportation. We're going to bring amenities. We're going to bring more workforce housing, not use Ward 7 and 8 as the dumping ground for everything that the rest of the city doesn't want, but help you catch up to where the rest of the city is.
Thank you, Mr. White. Ms. Bowser?
I would just say, I know that members of the council, Councilmember Robert White specifically, funds out of Ward 7 and 8. He did it first with the streetcar, and Councilmember Gray can attest to this and had to fight to keep the funds in so that we could extend the current, where it stops currently in the middle of the street to a metro station. Right now, he's circulating among the council members in attempt to take money out of the Food Access Fund. And we have used this Food Access Fund to build groceries in Ward 8, to break ground on the first grocery store in Ward 7 that's been built in 20 years at Skyland, and also to bring sit-down restaurants to Ward 7 and 8. So before we even start talking about a specific budget for Ward 7 and 8, oh, I also didn't mention how the council has set the timeline for how schools get improved. And we know that our Ward 8 schools are behind every other ward in having those funds allocated. So before we talk about having a specific Ward 7 and 8 budget, we need to make sure that the members of the council are doing for Ward 7 and 8 right now and keep the funds that I put in there for the Food Access Fund.
Mr. Robert White, I'll give you 30 seconds.
Thank you. Mayor Bowser visited Potomac Gardens Public Housing earlier this week, and the residents had something to say to her about the conditions there. What I tried to take streetcar money for was for improving public housing. The mayor said, no, don't do that. Let's build a streetcar. I say the most urgent thing is dignified housing. Right now, what I'm trying to do is create a mental health pipeline for our young people. So if I need to take it from a slush fund, I'm going to take it from a slush fund, because our kids need somebody who is going to be focused on their mental health and intensely focused on our communities, not this gimmick stuff that's going to help you win elections, but real stuff that's going to move communities forward.
Delia, I'm the mayor. You said the mayor.
I think we do have to move on. I think we did have ample time to discuss.
You said you could rebut.
Okay, folks. I love a lively debate. I love y'all's spirit. And these rapid fire questions, we're getting a lot of questions so far on from the audience. So I appreciate being engaged in our process here. Mr. Trayon White, you have 1 minute. Would you allocate a specific budget towards 7 and 8?
Yes, and I do want to say that this budget has not been equitable. Part of the conversation for the last 10 generations has been equality. We passed the conversation about equality. We're talking about equity. I sat on the council when we received the budget from the mayor, and 15 schools in Ward 8 was underfunded. I put that money back in the budget. I sat on the council when we ran the narrative that crime was down for 6 years, and we had $0 in the budget. I put the additional $750,000 in the budget for crime prevention. I sat on the council when we did the food justice walk. We had one grocery store serving 80,000 people on the council. I organized and made sure we pushed the mayor and other council members to put money in the budget for equity grocery stores. And so it's not about what I'm going to do, it's about what I've already been doing. Proven leadership in Ward 8.
Mayor Bowser, would you like your 30 seconds?
I would like my 30 seconds because I want to make it very clear, and I'm glad the council member is taking credit for the work that we have done together to bring groceries. A lot of people have promised, but I have actually delivered it. We have delivered grocery in Ward 8. We're going to deliver a brand new grocery in Ward 7, and we have brought sit-down restaurants to neighborhoods in Ward 7 and 8. And I want to be real clear about my commitment to public housing because we have invested $50 million every single year to transform units of public housing. So it's not good enough to say when you work with a $19 billion budget that people who have been waiting for connected transportation can't get it. We have to be able to do both. We have to walk and chew gum at the same time.
Our next question goes to Mr. Butler. As this ward is largely a food desert in the city, what's your plan to increase access to healthy and affordable foods immediately? We need immediate plans in regards.
Thank you so much. If Sharon Pratt Kelly was here today, she'd be calling my opponents 3 blind mice. Now, they have been here a number of years, and we're still talking about these problems, food shortage. The mayor, in one of our first debates of the season, bragged about how there were 2 grocery stores in Ward 7. So, we've got a lot of problems by doing more of the same, and I've shared this with the voters. If you do more of the same, you're gonna get more of the same. My plan is this: we will rely on services like Uber to deliver foods to those seniors that need it. We will also rely on services like Meals on Wheels for seniors that need it. In addition, I have talked about expanding a transportation infrastructure that Metro is entirely free for everyone, for land bus and rail buses. My opponents told me that it couldn't be done. I see I've got 15 more seconds, but I'm enthusiastic about telling you how I will bring it so that residents east of the river can transverse west of the river and get fresh food and produce.
Thank you, Ms. Bowser. Would you like 30 seconds to rebut? And I will also, if you could add in,
We are running for mayor, so if every time we use the term mayor, she gets a rebut, it's going to be a little imbalanced.
Well, it'll have to be that way because I can talk about my record without talking about their records.
Okay, so let's move on. Mr. White. Folks, let's give our candidates the floor. What's your plan to increase access to healthy and affordable foods, Mr. White? 1 minute.
Thank you. We all know that access to healthy and fresh foods in Ward 7 and 8 is in desperate shape. We have got to change our paradigm. For decades, we have been chasing down large grocers who don't want to come to parts of our city. We got to stop chasing folks who don't want to come to our city. We need to focus on smaller grocers. In the 60s and 70s, that's what our city looked like. We'll pull our produce from around the region. We will hire our local residents, and we make sure our residents have access to fresh foods. We're going to use tech-enabled solutions because it's going to take time to build brick and mortar, but people need fresh foods now. So we're going to use apps that deliver groceries to get groceries more quickly to folks in our community who don't have access to transportation. But then we're also going to focus on enforcement. Folks who are gouging our residents, who are refusing to supply fresh and healthy foods, we're going to try to work with them. But if they refuse to turn the page, we're going to shut them down because our residents deserve to be able to walk down the street and get fresh foods and groceries.
Thank you, Ms. Bowser. What would you do to increase affordable foods and healthy foods here? And a question directly to you, when can we expect the Lidl grocery store to open in Ward 7?
Well, I've already talked about what we've been able to do, and the council member has referred to a model that we're using, where we have successful models of groceries, small groceries, locally owned groceries, groceries that hire DC residents, like the Good Foods Market. We want to, as the city, partner with them so that they can expand. Similarly, where we have sit-down restaurants that have done well, hire DC residents, provide different goods and places to meet, like Busboys and Poets. We want to be a partner to them so that they can expand. And now we have Busboys and Poets on Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue. I think that Lidl has an 18-month built out. We broke ground there a few months ago. So I think they're going to deliver mid to third quarter in 23.
Mr. Trayon White, same question, 1 minute.
What do I know? I know that we are what we eat. It's just not simply just about providing grocery stores, but also about giving the right information on what to eat. See, I grew up in this ward where we had a Murray Steaks, and for most of us, we ate steakums, hot dogs, bologna, processed food, which further exacerbated high blood pressure and diabetes. And so I've worked hard to build not only 2 more grocery options here in Ward 8, but a state-of-the-art garden here in Ward 8, right on Valley Avenue. You've never seen nothing like it in Washington, D.C. Why? Because where there's no vision, the people perish. So it's about big vision. And furthermore, I know that maybe we have some seniors who are in Ward 8 that are getting $18 a month on their food stamps, which is criminal. As mayor, my job is to work with the federal government to increase that because they have to choose between their medicine and their food, and this is criminal. And so we started this war, but as mayor, we're going to address more solutions to create equitable education, information, and access to quality grocery options in Washington, D.C., and specifically here in Ward 8. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White. The next question is in regards to crime in the area. There are 3 that I'm going to There are three that I'm going to try to combine. So the question is, what are your plans to stop violence in the community east of the river? In some sites, safe passage and violence prevention programs, doing more than beyond locking up the guys with the guns. This person says you need to stop those guns from coming to our city. How do you plan to do this? So, Mr. Butler, we'll start with you. 1 minute.
Thank you. I will make DC one of the safest cities in America. I've said this before, I've said it on the record, and the Post has quoted me as saying this. We will have a special gun interdiction unit that we add to our police department to work with the current gun recovery unit. That gun interdiction unit will be charged with seizing all illegal guns coming into the district that would do our residents harm. In addition to that, I said that we must partner with the ATF and our federal partners, and we will. We will ensure that ghost guns are a thing of the past. Furthermore, I have shared this, that our police force is overworked. We're doing 1.1 million hours of overtime right now. That is the equivalent of hiring 500 additional police officers. These police officers are overworked. They don't believe they have a mayor that has their back. The response times are slower. In my first 4 years, I have committed to the residents of the district to bring an additional 500 to 700 police officers to interdict these illegal guns, make our streets safer, and deliver a safer DC, becoming one of the safest cities in America.
Thank you. That's your time, sir. Thank you. Mr. Robert White, same question, 1 minute.
Thank you. First thing I'm going to do is focus our police resources on public safety. We're not going to use our police officers as a catch-all, focusing on traffic safety, mental health, noise complaints. We're going to focus them on public safety so they can be in our communities, respond, and close cases. The second thing I'm going to do is expand our violence intervention, because by the time the police have to respond, it's too late. We need to stop the violence to begin with. The third thing I'm going to do, specifically on guns, I'm going to work with law enforcement from around our region to stop guns from flowing into the District of Columbia. We're also going to work with regional prosecutors to make sure we're getting to the source of these guns that are coming into our city. On safe passage, I'm going to move this along more swiftly. My first year as a council member, I was out with Principal White here in Ward 8 doing safe passage because no one from the city was responding, so I just showed up. But we need more people from our city to be showing up. This program should be more evolved than it is. There are people across our city who want to lean in. As mayor, I'm going to give them an opportunity to lean in to keep our kids safe going to and from school so they can get the education that they deserve and focus only on that.
Thank you. That's your time. Thank you. Ms. Bowser, same question. You have 1 minute.
So we know that in neighborhoods all across DC, public safety is the #1 issue. People are not feeling safe. Grandmas aren't feeling safe, letting their grandchildren go out to play or go to the grocery or go to church. The level of gun violence in our city is unacceptable. Our focus has been to identify people who are most likely to carry guns and use guns in our city and pour in services into them. We believe it's a small number of people, 200 up to 500 in any given year. So concentrating on them, their associates, and their families, and making sure they have access to job training, mental health, subsidized employment, we know can curb gun violence in this city. However, we have to make sure that we hold people accountable who use guns in our city, because that is the only way that we know that we can be safe. We cannot have our police force depleted by 300 a year, and we have to hire new officers.
Thank you, Ms. Bowser. Mr. Trayon White, same question.
So it was said that public safety is the #1 issue in Washington, D.C., all across the district. You have to ask yourself, why? And I'm going to tell you why. See, I've for the last 20 plus years, I've been going to crime scenes. In the last 8, I've been going to crime scenes only to go to meetings in a day and hear the narrative that crime is down. And you know we say in Ward 8, crime is down the street, around the corner, in our communities. And so you can't address a problem without first acknowledging the problem. You can't come to a solution without acknowledging there's a problem. And for 7 years, we had 0 money in the budget for violence prevention. I want to highlight Dwayne Wright. Dwayne Wright is an ex-offender, returning citizen who came home. And part of what I started along with other leaders, was to create a vehicle where he can come back and be a violence interrupter in this community. Now we have over 100 of them throughout the city because we pressed the issue when people were saying that we are paying people not to commit crime. And so it's about empowering people from their community to police their own community. What I also know is Safe Passage started with the youth at Thurgood Marshall.
Thank you, Mr.
Sorry,
White.
thank you.
I'm going to follow up and continue the crime issue with another question that we had for the last debate, and again, it resurfaced here. What responsibilities should parents bear when they know their young people are committing these crimes? And should we as a city, or should the mayor try to hold them accountable and responsible in some ways? And I'm going to start with Trayon White.
Thank you. I want to say that all communities start in the home. But I know growing up here in Washington, D.C., specifically in Ward 8, we have a lot of broken homes. We have never fully recovered from the crack epidemic and the war on drugs that's crippled the black community here in D.C. And so we can say, we can put the ownership on the parents. Yes, parents have a level of accountability, but the whole community has a level of accountability. And we have to become the village for the young people. I see Presto over there. We go inside the schools on Fridays intervening for young people who may not have a parent or a father. Ward 8 has 81% single-parent households, predominantly African-American women. And so, yes, we must hold the parents accountable, but we must also hold the government accountable, because we closed down Old Rec, Hot Rec, Blue Rec, Catching Rec, number 11 Boys and Girls Club over the last 8 years. So we're going to hold the parents accountable. Let's hold the government accountable as well, and the community accountable. Thank you.
Ms. Bowser, same question, 1 minute.
I frequently say that the government can do a lot, but the government can't do it all. And we need community, we need parents, we need church, we need nonprofits, we need everybody working together. I don't believe in criminalizing parents or putting them in the CFA system when they need help. And so what our agencies are focused on, from CFSA to MPD to DHS, is making sure that we can support parents and give them the help that they need. We also hear from parents that they're at their wits' end. They may have a child that they need more help with, and they know that that child, without intervention, is going to be lost to the street, either killed or put in jail. We actually are promoting an idea for young people, juveniles, who are not justice involved yet, but on their way. And if a parent presents to us and say, we need help, we want to come up with a respite opportunity for them. And so that parent can get some help and the child can reset.
Thank you, Ms. Bowser. Mr. Robert White, same question.
Thank you for the question. When parents have children that have committed crimes and they don't tell, they're already committing a crime. They're already aiding and abetting crime. But what we focus so much on is consequences, and not enough on is prevention. We have communities that have been starved for mental health resources, starved for stronger schools, starved for jobs, starved for stable and dignified housing because of historic racism that has run rampant through our communities. And I wish we were as focused on helping communities get ahead as we are punishing them for the mistakes that have piled up over years. As mayor, you are going to see an intense focus from me on restoring and empowering our communities, getting the resources that people need to help them move ahead, supporting families so that they are building stronger every single generation, getting adult education, improving our schools so that students in your neighborhood don't have to go across town to get a good education, so that they're not repeating this same cycle in the next generation. What you will see from me is a mayor who will have consequences when people make mistakes, but the heart of my work is going to be preventing those mistakes and those barriers to begin with.
Mr. White, thank you. Mr. Butler, same question. Would you hold parents accountable?
You've heard Councilman Trayon White say we should hold the government responsible too. What he failed to mention that this right here, all three of them, are a significant chunk of our present government. The mayor, and a large member, and a ward council member. Folks, I'm saying it because there ain't that many more people. You got 13 council member and a mayor. So if crime is high, if crime is historically high, it falls right at their feet. And so ask yourself, should you do more of the same? Should you do more of the same? I will absolutely hold parents accountable, and you need to ask yourself, why aren't they presently being held accountable? Ask these three. Ask these three why they aren't presently being held accountable.
Mr. Trayon White, I'll give you 30 seconds if you'd like to rebut.
So let me say this. While I appreciate Mr. Butler and his rebuttal, what I know is that every day, there's no parent I ever met that want their child out here doing wrong. And every time I talk to a parent, you know what they say? My son or daughter can't get help unless he or she is in trouble. And so we are working in partnership with our local organizations to change the trajectory of our young people here in Ward 8 and across the district. So we can talk about the problem all day, but until we create holistic solutions as early as elementary school, we're still perpetuating the school-to-prison pipeline each and every day. Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to move on. A question that was submitted earlier. In DC, there are 1 in 5 children that have a disability. There are many families that experience multiple barriers, such as accessing and retaining employment, accessing OST activities, out of school time activities, and sustainable housing. If elected mayor, what will your office do to help bridge these gaps? And how will you work with council to assist families caring for children with disabilities? Mr. Butler, 1 minute.
Thank you. I promised early on in this campaign that I will focus on these and folks and embellishing our Department of Disability Services. In addition, those individuals with disabilities that need affordable housing and those sorts of things, we need to ensure that we can adequately provide real, deeply affordable housing. We talk too much in this city about affordable housing that no one can afford. We need a mayor that will focus on providing deeply affordable housing by changing the law and how we calculate affordable housing, getting rid of this antiquated process of HUD's formula of calculating affordable housing and adopting our own regional formula, and also bringing things like rent control. That's how we can bridge the divide.
Follow-up question,
Sure.
Accessing school activities.
We will ensure that, one, that we communicate with all of our demographics, and excuse me that I neglected that, and also the parents to discern where these kids, what activities they're looking for. And as mayor, I've also said that we will ensure that we always talk with the parents or our demographics that are affected to ensure that we know what they need. So what we will address the needs by learning what those needs are from the parents.
Thank you very much. Mr. Robert White, I'll give you 1 minute and 15 to talk about not only accessing out-of-school activities, but housing for those parents of children with disabilities.
Thank you. I meet frequently with parents who have children with disabilities. I'm the father of 2 little girls, a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, and I know without a shadow of a doubt that the most important thing for parents is to have an education and extracurricular opportunities for our kids, the same as every other kid. But what I hear too frequently from parents is that it takes so long for their kids to get what's called an IEP, the assistance that they need in school. Once they get it, it's not consistently provided. This is tormenting our parents, and we can do better. But there's also the loss of dignity for our young people who can't participate in out-of-school time program because this young girl or young boy needs extra help and our city hasn't provided it. It's not that we don't have the resources. It's that we have to be more deliberate in getting resources to students who have special needs. But we also understand that, unfortunately, caring for children with special needs is often a full-time job for parents. And so it hurts their employment opportunities. It hurts their earning opportunities. But they are focusing on the most important thing, their children and those resources. That means we have to support them more in housing. So as mayor, I'm going to meet with parents who have students with disabilities to create better and stronger supports for housing and to make sure there are no gaps in our school or out-of-school time programs.
Thank you. Ms. Bowser, 1:15.
Thank you, Delia. I believe that this is a space where we can do a lot better as a city to make sure all of our residents with disabilities have every opportunity that everyone else has. I'm proud that in the last 7 years, we've been able to make tens of millions of dollars in investments in our infrastructure to make sure that our public facilities are accessible, especially our recreation facilities where where people go to vote in our schools. And that has actually been a long time coming. I too have spoken with parents of students with disabilities, and their big concern right now, I believe, is around out of school time. That includes after school, and that includes summer. With this budget that the council is poised to approve, we're going to be able to almost double the amount of camp spaces that we have for our kids. And I will commit to ensuring that a section of those opportunities are designated for children with disabilities. More than that, we have to look at our after school time. Let me say too, that the council member is right, that people need not untraditional work and child care to be able to support their children with disabilities.
Thank you, Ms. Bowser. Mr. White, 115, out of school time and housing for families with disability.
First, I think as a government, we have to put our money where our mouth is. If you look at the Office of Disability Rights, it's one of the lowest budgets out of any government agency. And as a former manager of a nonprofit, I know we did more when we had less. Our budget grew significantly, almost $5 billion in the last 5 years. I remember the DC Office on Youth Investment Trust Corporation. You might remember that? Closed down. We had the Office of Partnerships and Grant that gave out millions of dollars and access to millions of dollars in the community. It's been reshuffled underneath Serve DC where you can't even find it anymore. And so when we have more, we have done less. And so it's not about where the money is, it's about priority. So as mayor, I will make sure that we are prioritizing and reaching those who need the resources to most. And I also heard about camp space. What I know is that the residents in Furby Hope called my office saying, we know the camp open. As soon as we got online to apply, all the sites, all the slots were gone. And so it's about communication and having the right people in place to deliver the services to those who need it the most. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White. Mr. White, I'm going to start with you with another question. We're going to stick with the education theme. Are you in favor of removing the DC public school system from mayoral control and giving power back to the elected school board? Mr. Trayon White.
So thank you. I had this question a few times. And so as mayor, I will create a hybrid system to give more power to the DC State Board of Education. As a former State Board of Education representative, I knew that we received our orders from OSSI, which is backwards. When we talk about leadership in the school system. I also know that we are in a place where we have switched chancellors. Since I've been in office, we had 4 chancellors, 3 chancellors, and 1 interim chancellor, and the leadership is starting over and over again. So you can't get to a goal if the leadership is changing. And so as mayor, my job is to make sure we have, one, give relationships and credit to those State Board of Education representatives who are elected by DC, and also create a stable education system where we are focused on careers, entrepreneurship, and also college as early as middle school. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White. Ms. Bowser, same question, mayoral control of our school system.
I favor mayoral leadership of our schools with council oversight, which is our present system, where the mayor is responsible for hiring the chancellor and making appointments to the charter school board, and the people are responsible for electing a school board that advises and makes policy recommendations for our schools. I believe that that is the system for the last 15 years that have brought public school families back to our schools. That is the system that has also improved the achievement of our students, our Black and brown students who were way behind the national average in achievement in math and reading, and have caught up dramatically because of our steadfast commitment to public education reform. I am so proud of the work that our teachers do, especially in the last 2 years during this pandemic. And I am unwilling. In fact, I think that it is a seminal issue in this election that you elect a mayor who wants the responsibility, who wants to be accountable to the voters for advancing improvement of our schools.
Thank you, Ms. Bowser. Mr. White, same question.
I do not support our current system of mayoral control of schools because as the father of 2 Black girls, I refuse to accept that a school system in which 60% of Black and brown students are behind grade level is good enough. It is not. We have the most extreme version of mayoral control in the country, and it is not working for students of color. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to appoint a chancellor who understands my vision and shares my sense of urgency for fixing our schools, and who will work with me on replacing our teacher impact system in my first year. I'm going to work with the council to appoint an independent state superintendent of education who will hold us accountable to outcomes for all children. And I'm going to work to study how we empower our state board of education so that they can better amplify the voices of our school communities and our parents' voices that are being left out of the conversation all the time. A lot of people will have you believe that in education, there are only two options: either the system that was broken for our students 15 years ago, or the system that is broken for our students right now. And I tell you, we got more than two options. We need a mayor who understands that.
Thank you,
That's the
Mr.
mayor I'll
White.
be.
Thank you, Mr. White. Mr. Butler, and I will remind those who aren't speaking, if you can shut off your microphones for the AV. Mr. Butler, one minute.
Thank you. I will maintain the current system, but I believe we can build on it, improve on it. I think it is reckless for a mayor to say that they want to deconstruct or tear down the whole thing when we can simply improve on the current system that we have. My goal as mayor is to run the entire city, and that's what I will begin to do from day one. We will focus on ensuring that the per pupil formula that's presently used is reinforced with earmarked funds to support those schools east of the river. And in addition to that, we will ensure that teacher retention is our highest priority, that we provide workforce housing, that we know and reintroduce the teachers' college so that we can lower the rate of teacher attrition. I believe that is the best way to run our school system, with the mayor running the entire city, and that's what I will do from day one.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. We're going to move on to the issue of housing. And this is coming from an audience member. As a lifelong resident and first responder, I find it very challenging to obtain homeownership. I've been outbid several times, and I think we can all relate to that one. As mayor, how would you make this possible for affordable housing and for residents who, in many cases, are natives, invested into the city, to actually have equity in this city? And I'll start with Mr. Butler.
Thank you for the question. I think we also know that the city is roughly 80% renters. And what I am proposing to bring more deeply affordable housing is this. We presently use a formula that's antiquated, I believe, is HUD's formula to calculate what AMI is. The AMI is used typically in situations of inclusionary zoning. The reason why HUD's formula is problematic, it's a regional formula. We live around some of the richest counties in America, and it artificially inflates what's affordable in DC. Nothing in the law right now compels us to stick with HUD's formula. From day one, I will focus on aborting that formula and adopt our own regional formula. In addition, I will go into the city's own housing stock to provide affordable housing. We rely too much on private developers for our present affordable housing. In addition, I will impose rent control on every dwelling place, including those that were built post-1976. This is not something I'm going to wait 8 years or 6 years to do. This is something I'm going to do from day one.
Thank you very much. Mr. Robert White, your plan for affordable housing and make homeownership possible for more residents.
On the issue of affordable housing, as mayor, I'm going to use the only seat in this city powerful enough to stand up to developers and say that, look, what we need in this city, if you want to be part of our community, is more low-income housing, workforce housing, multifamily housing, and senior housing. We need a mayor who's going to make that clear to the developer community. As mayor, I'm going to also focus on home ownership opportunities for all of our residents. I'm going to work with the council to develop a right of first refusal program for owner-occupied housing so that our residents are not being outbid by folks who want to come in and flip houses. So we're going to work on that together. We're also going to continue to support and expand supports for first responders and teachers, the folks that we want to be able to live in our community, because it is not fair that the folks who really make our community move, our teachers and our first responders, are the ones who least can afford to live here. So we're also going to work on multifamily housing, ownership opportunities, and we're going to be more deliberate with how we put housing on public lands, because it can't continue as it is now.
Thank you, Mr. White. Ms. Bowser?
I mean, I think what we've heard today is I'm gonna, I shoulda, I woulda, I woulda. I'm a study, I'm a study. Maybe, mighta, shoulda. That's what I heard. I'm gonna. I'm gonna tell you what I've done. I've been an ANC commissioner, a ward council member, and the mayor of my hometown. I have, with the support of the council, invested $1 billion in affordable housing in this city. We will create 36,000 units. We've done it for veterans. We've done it for seniors. We've done it for families. We've done it for people who have been here for 5 generations and for 5 minutes. We know how to make the investments and get stuff done. What we need in the next 4 years is proven leadership, not platitudes. My colleagues here have been on the council. They have been in other offices, but they have failed to deliver anything. Have you noticed that we haven't been able to talk about real investments in Ward 8 except for me?
So I heard the conversation about $1 billion in affordable housing. And almost every time I hear that, the response is affordable for who and where the hell is it? I live in the District of Columbia where we get calls from residents every day who are living in dilapidated housing. The Housing Production Trust Fund, in which we boast about, has become a slush fund for developers. Let's tell the truth. Not talking about what I shoulda, coulda, woulda, but I rewrote the law because we noticed that most of that money that we had in that budget was going to people earning between $80,000 and $120,000 a year. Most people I know don't make that type of money. And so it's imperative that we have the right vision and the right solution. Also, I created a bill around displacement-free zones to freeze the taxes in and around areas hard to see about development because we can see these new buildings going up. Well, what about the people who lived there before? We are engineering gentrification with this current administration right here in Washington, D.C. And so it's on us to fix it. And as mayor, it's my duty and my job to make sure we can create a D.C. where everybody can live here in our district. Thank you.
30 seconds, Mr. Butler.
I'm a gonna, would've, should've, could've. That's the mayor's statement. But that implies to the mayor of the city. Why was the question proffered to us today about affordable housing? The only reason the question came before you today is because everyone knows it's not affordable in DC. Not affordable in DC. So when she's saying, I'm a gonna, would've, should've, could've, she's talking about herself. 3 blind mice.
30 seconds, Mr. Robert White.
Let me talk to you about what I did. As soon as I got to the council, I passed a bill that would focus our government on converting office buildings into affordable and workforce housing, but this administration couldn't implement it. 2 years ago, I passed a bill that would allow us to acquire existing housing and make it affordable housing immediately, but this administration couldn't implement it. With my council colleagues, we funded enough housing vouchers to house every unhoused resident living in tent encampments, but you got eyes and you see the same thing I'm seeing, that this administration couldn't implement it. So what I'm gonna do now is run for mayor so we have a mayor who can implement.
Let's talk about homelessness. Let's talk about homelessness because the truth. It's okay if they don't want me to talk. I can wait my turn.
On the issue of homelessness.
Excuse me. Let me have your attention, please. Thank you. These are our guests. In case you didn't hear that at first, okay? They are the guests of the Ward 8 Democrats, okay? So please allow all of our guests to speak. If you are in disagreement with what they say, you know what to do, right? You'll vote on June 21st. In the meantime, they are our invited guests, so we're asking you to
Thank you, Troy. So we are nearing the end of this lively debate. So we're only going to have a couple of questions before we move on to closing remarks. So thank you, Troy, for that announcement. Let's please give these candidates our respect and the floor so they can answer these important questions. Let's move on and talk about our seniors in this community, because we did receive lots of questions from our seniors. Many elected officials voted to distribute food and supplies in the community during the COVID-19 crisis. How did you promote the mental health of our seniors? And this isn't just in programming, but one-on-one, speaking, visiting, flowers, phone calls. What have you done to support our seniors who oftentimes were suffering with their own mental health challenges, isolated during the pandemic? So I'll start with Mr. Butler.
I want you all to fact check me on this. I've been to nearly every senior home in the city. I have partnered with Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, and I delivered that on my own transportation with my own trucking. I sat in the senior centers talking with them, asking them what their needs are. They call me on my cell phone directly. That's the type of commitment we need from a mayor on day one. That's the type of commitment that I will bring to the mayor's office. In addition to that, early in this campaign, I promised that this city would have one of the most robust mental and behavioral health systems in the country. We will be the entire envy of the country, and I will deliver and begin working on that promise from day one. We seniors must not be the first to be talked about and the last to look after. I will look after them just as I talk about them.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. Mr. White, not only in the COVID-19 crisis, but how will you continue to support our seniors in this community?
I'll continue to do what I've been doing as a council member and as a mayoral candidate, which is showing up to our senior homes and talking to seniors about what you need. We don't need a mayor who tells people what they need. We need a mayor who's going to listen to people and fill the gaps that they identify. And what seniors tell me consistently is that they need better transportation options. They need accessibility across our city. They need access to fresh foods, and they need mental health supports. I talked to you a little earlier about one of the mental health pipelines that I'm trying to open up, and yes, I'm trying to do it in this budget and trying to take it from a slush fund. I've talked to you earlier about how I'm going to close our fresh food gaps, close our food deserts. A senior told me last week in Ward 8 at the Robert Walker House, he said you shouldn't call it a food desert because food deserts are not man-made. You should call it food apartheid. And I heard him loud and clear. What he was saying is that we can do something about this, but we need a mayor who's going to do something about it. As mayor, watch how I show up for our seniors to solve the problems that we have been talking about and I've been working as a council member to invest in.
Mr. White, thank you. Ms. Bowser.
Thank you, and I am very grateful to our seniors who spoke up, listened, followed public health advice, got vaccinated so they could get back to life. Seniors in Washington, D.C. were 95% vaccinated and really stuck together through this pandemic. So I want to say thank you. I also know that we have done a we have been very strategic about how we stay in touch with our seniors. One of my big concerns about seniors is isolation. And when seniors were disconnected from our senior wellness centers, we became even more concerned. But it's a whole group of people who don't have family, who don't come out to senior centers and are truly isolated. And so as a community, how to reach out and touch them is important. Technology is important. We shouldn't assume that our seniors aren't on their iPhones and iPads and send text messages on Facebook and all of the other social media. So staying in touch with them through those means is important as well, and making sure that we're delivering wellness, nutrition, but also companionship. Care for people who are supporting our seniors is also key to the work we do.
Thank you, Ms. Bowser. Mr. White, same question.
For those who know me, know that during the pandemic, we've gathered over 100 volunteers to feed over 950 plus seniors every day. And so we're not just talking about what we want to do, what we're going to do. We're talking about when duty calls, we step up. We're on the front line. We answer those calls. And so what I know is that seniors who have been isolated or not having access to services, we knocked on their door, we got them on a Zoom call to communicate with them because they matter as well as everyone else. We can't say we can't find seniors. I'm gonna tell you why that's a lie, because we find them on election time. When it's time to vote, we knock on their doors, we send them flyers, we send them emails, we do blasts to their cell phones, or house phones. Seniors are the backbones of Washington, D.C. And most of us wouldn't be up here if somebody didn't pave the way for us to have these opportunities. And so I want to also highlight Ms. Beverly and Ms. Connie, who passed away during this pandemic, who was on the front line with us, advocating for those seniors right here in Ward 8. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White. I'm going to end this on a fun, light note. I think you all can appreciate that, a little lightness towards the end, a little levity. So this is coming from an audience member. We haven't had an indoor roller skating rink since the closing of Kalorama Skating years ago. And as you know, roller skating is a big part of our culture. Can you make a promise to build a roller skating rink in Washington, D.C.? A lot of us are going over to Ward 9 on Branch Avenue. So, Mr. Butler.
I promise I'll bring it if you teach me how to roller skate really well. Okay, that may include you holding me up for a little bit, but I promise I'll bring it.
Mr. White.
Funny you should ask. I was watching on Instagram the other day, Usher, the performer, roller skate, and I looked at my wife and I said, I feel like I should be able to roller skate. She laughed at me. So you won't see me on the floor, but here's what I'll say. There was a time where we had skate rinks across our city, and I'm gonna do my best to bring at least some of them back, because we gotta get more things that pull our community and particularly our young people.
Ms. Bowser.
Well, I have proposed an indoor recreation complex to go at RFK. We have been focused on RFK. It's 100 acres. Is that in Ward 8 now? It's okay. It's in Ward 7. It's right next door in Ward 7. But we are going to work with the federal government to get control of our land, to make the infrastructure investments necessary, to bring our football team back, but to also have housing, jobs, a connection to the river, and a $60 million indoor sporting complex, which hasn't been designed. So we can think about how it can include skating or be on an adjacent section of the RFK campus. Now that takes vision, it takes hard work, and it takes, not all of us agree that that is how the campus should be laid out, but I know we can have recreation, we can have our football team, we can have a connection to the river, we can have affordable housing and jobs.
Mr. White.
As the chairman of Department of Recreations, my commitment has always been to restore extracurricular activities for youth, young adults, our seniors, and even pets in Washington, D.C. In fact, we're in the process of building 4 new recreation centers right here in Ward 8. And so to say I'm going to commit to a skating rink, I can't do that at this juncture, because I know that we're in a housing crisis. We're in an education crisis, a homeless crisis, public safety crisis, and so it's about priority. And if we're going to build a facility that's to do skating, we can build a gym, or you can skate in the gym. And so I think that we have to address all needs in Ward 8 and Washington, D.C. To address extracurricular activities. So I can't not, just because it's a mayor forum, say I'm going to commit to building a skating ring. We have so many other pressing priorities right now in Washington, D.C. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, our candidates for mayor of the District of Columbia, please give them a round of applause. All right, before everyone packs up and goes, we do have 1 minute closing remarks. I just wanted to give y'all a little love, right? I just wanted us to thank our candidates for being here and being engaged in the process. We have 1 minute closing remarks, and I will start with Mr. White.
Thank you. My name is Treyon White. And we are in a peculiar place in Washington, D.C. We have to make some decisions. In the last election, less than 19% of the population came out to vote for mayor. And so we keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect a different outcome. That is the definition of insanity. See, I watch and hear people argue about who's not doing this and who's not doing what. Guess what? No one is coming to save us but us. We are in a time in history where we can elect a person who's going to put people over politics. Trayon White has a proven record of doing just that for the last 19 years plus on the front line, in the trenches, and create equitable solutions for Washington, D.C. On June 21st, you have an opportunity to change the trajectory of D.C., and that's Trayon Washington, D.C. White. We can no longer complain. We must get involved and do something. So don't just stand there. Do something. So on June 21st, you can start with your mail-in ballots. Vote Trayon White for mayor, and let's help save Washington, D.C. Thank you, and God bless.
Ms. Bowser, 1 minute.
Thank you, Ward 8, and I am pleased to be here, and thank you for your tough questions, for your well wishes, and for the work that we will do ahead together. When I look back over my time in office, I know I've kept my promises to Ward 8. And that is what is most important to me. There was a Sandra Seekers, who lives in Ward 8, said something about me, that I made a promise to close down DC General. It was a homeless shelter for children where we lost a child, and build homeless shelters in all 8 wards in the city, not just Ward 8. And she said, I'm gonna stick with Bowser because I've never seen a mayor do that. Greta Fuller, right here in historic Anacostia, said she had a living room meeting with us while she was running for mayor, and every single thing that she promised, to bring more retail, to invest in a TIF, the first ever economic development tool put in Ward 8 that's transformed the whole city but had never been done in Ward 8, we brought to Ward 8. We brought sit-down restaurants and we brought jobs. Before this pandemic, we had the lowest unemployment levels in Ward 8 in the history of that number being recorded. So I've kept my promises to Ward 8, and I'm asking Ward 8 to stick with me, because the next 4 years are not for on-the-job training. The next 4 years are putting people back to work, catching our kids up, making sure our streets are safer, and bringing our city back. And I'm asking you to vote for a proven leader.
Mr. White, 1 minute.
Ward 8, thank you so much for having me. It is my honor to be here with you. I want you to understand the reason that I'm running for mayor, the reason I'm on the council is because as a lawyer, I'm an outlier in my family. I want to focus on public safety because I have a 3-year-old daughter who had a gun pulled on somebody right in front of her daycare. I want to focus on housing because I'm so mad that my dad, the proudest Washingtonian you will ever meet, can't afford to live in this city, and that's too much like the rest of my family. I want to focus on education because as a father, I know the potential of my children and I know the potential of young people across our city. What we need now is a mayor with a sense of urgency, a mayor with new ideas, because most people in the city know we're not doing good enough, and you should be scared of anybody who says the only person who can be mayor is the person who has been mayor. That ain't a good slogan. What we need is somebody who sees our people eye to eye, somebody who's going to relentlessly fight for our communities every single day with everything that we have, somebody who's going to do the work, build a bench, and move out the way so other leaders can come through. What I'm telling you is that our city won't be the same. On June 22nd, you're going to see excitement in our city like you have not seen in a long time, because we are going to blueprint the next decade for our city, and that decade includes you and you and you and you and me. It includes all of us. I'm going to be a mayor who understands that DC must be a DC for all of us, and I'm asking for your vote.
Thank you, Mr. White. Mr. Butler, 1 minute.
Thank you, Ward 8. This is my second time here today. I did a meet and greet this morning. This is my 6th debate in a row. I am tired. I am tired, and I'll be honest with you. But DC needs a fighter, someone that will genuinely put the work in to fight for the people. We've heard the mayor talk about that we need tested leadership, folks. I want to tell you this. This test has been failed miserably by the mayor. But not only by the mayor, but by the council members that currently run this city. We have a combined total of 30+ years of failed leadership. I promise you, if you do more of the same, you simply will get more of the same. You do not have to be relegated to more of the same. I will be prepared from day one to turn this city around, make it one of the safest cities in America, to bring deeply affordable housing, to nix our homeless issues, and to make our schools make the grade. That is why I'm asking for your vote on June 21st. I want to leave like the Reverend James Cleveland said, I am in no ways tired. God bless you and God bless the soon-to-be 51st state.
Okay, and our candidates for mayor of the District of Columbia, again, a round of applause, please, folks. And that concludes our debate.
Thank you. Please help me thank Delia Gonçalves. She's been an incredible moderator of these back-to-back debates. Okay, listen, folks, especially those of us who are online. Again, you will be able to vote in these 40 vote centers across the district during early vote period that runs June 10th through June 19th. And 90 vote centers will be open on Election Day, Tuesday, June 21st. In addition to those 40 vote centers, 90 vote centers will be open on Election Day, and 55 drop boxes will be open all across the city. You can vote at any of those locations. Take a look at these slides up here. You'll see the vote locations in Ward 8. Vote in those locations if you want to stay in the ward, but to be clear, you can vote anywhere in the city.